Hello all and welcome to my Hubble abode. It's super summery outside, so I thought I'd wear one of my best bright green shirts. And on the topic of green, I thought we could also talk about green stars. So the universe that we know is filled with these beautiful bright colours, from wonderful nebulae to the aurora borealis. But there's one object that doesn't really appreciate colours the same way as the rest of the universe does, and that is stars. So let's start off with the basics. The most popular way that we classify stars is using the Morgan-Keenan system. You might know this one as the "Oh be a fine girl, kiss me" system, but that's more of a colloquial thing. There are other ways to classify stars, but the MK system is probably the most popular one. This system works by grouping stars based on surface temperature, and we have O being the hottest, from OBAF, and then we also have M being the coolest. So I'm going to pop a picture up of a HR diagram. So this basically shows the MK system with luminosity of the star against its surface temperature, so how hot the surface is. And what you can probably see right now is that there's no green. But you can see lots of blue and lots of yellows and reds. But where green should be, you actually see white. With stars, what we find is it's the surface temperature that dictates where on the colour spectrum, so which wavelength of light is emitted most from the star. So this is called the peak wavelength. You can calculate it using Wien's law, which you might have come across in physics A level. And so you can see on this diagram with the high temperatures, that OB section, we have, high temperature, we've got high energy, and so high energy light is going to have very short wavelengths, which is going to be bluer. Same with the other end of the spectrum, with the smaller dwarf stars. We've got not so much energy, perhaps not so much brightness, depending on which phase the star is in, of course. So we have low energy light with very long wavelengths, which will usually be more red. So what's going on with green? Why can't I see any green stars? Well, quite simply, the peak wavelength is in the green section. There is green light being emitted. Remember, it's the peak wavelength, so it's where most light is emitted. So whilst most light is emitted in the green, we've also got some red wavelength light, and then we've also got some blue light, and overall these tend to balance each other out and make a white light, basically. I'm going to show you the sun spectra as an example for this, because it is quite literally one of the best examples we have of white light. Below is an absorption spectra of the sun. It would also look the same in the emission spectra, just swap the colours with black and the black with the colours and you'll get the same thing. What we can see here is that the green has been distinguished, and so there's a lot of wavelengths in the green section. In fact, most of them are pretty much green. Just what we see is that there's a balance between the lines on the bluer side and on the red side, and so what we have is all of this colourful light blending together to make white. If we compare this to a star like perhaps Vega, what we see is also quite a lot of green light, but it's slightly shifted towards the blue section. So what we get is slightly more blue light than there is red light. And so that's why Vega is white, but also very just slightly blue. To be honest, it would be kind of cool to have green stars. Green being my favourite colour, of course. But although no stars are green or pure green, it's kind of nice to just treat them as little spherical hot rainbows. Green is quite interesting in that it is basically right between blue and red. And so we have this nice blend of light to make just a white star. Another colour that's quite interesting to talk about is magenta. See, what's interesting about magenta is that it's created using no green light whatsoever, but we have red light and blue light coming together to make this beautiful pinkish colour, which of course just isn't possible with a star. So alongside green stars, there's also no such thing as a magenta or even a pink star, really. So it's kind of interesting how with fuchsia you just don't have enough colour for it to be physically possible, and then with green light you've got so much colour that it also becomes impossible. And that's just kind of a weird thing for me to think about, but it's pretty cool anyway. So that wraps up today's video on stars. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something new, and well, before I finish, on the topic of colour, I was wondering what you thought of these beautiful bits of yarn. Unfortunately, I had no knitting or no crochet to do in this video, but for future videos I was quite interested in perhaps knitting some socks in the colours representing the planets, which would be pretty cool. So let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.